Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. Here it is. We are on this is Thursday, April the 23rd. Okay. Today, what we're going to look at, and I know yesterday I posted a lesson. I think it was assignment 5 is what I called it, and some of you have completed that already. And are doing a good job. Shout out real quick to Braden Wright, doing an awesome job with his work right now. Proud of you, Braden, doing a really good job, man. But for today, what we're going to look at is we're changing gears a little bit. We were doing inequalities the other day. Today, we're going to come back and do systems of equations, okay? And like I said, I'm trying to pick out things that are of the most importance. Okay, so it's not necessarily that everything's going to build upon itself. Some of it will build off of something maybe we did earlier. Some of it will build off something that we'll do later. So I'm just touching the basics. And I know we've covered all of this stuff. We've talked about all this stuff. We've discussed all this stuff, okay? So I'm going to look at 2 examples today. And I'll probably just give you 2 example problems on the assignment, okay? But today we're going to do solving systems of equations, and there's 3 ways to do those, okay? 3 ways to do those. One way is by graphing. We're not going to talk about the graphing right now, okay? We're not going to worry about that. The second way is substitution. That's the day that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? And then the third way is elimination method, or sometimes it's called the addition method. We'll probably look at that the next time I do a video. So, but for today, we're going to do substitution, okay? And substitution is exactly what it sounds like, okay? We are going to sub in to one of the equations, all right? So we're going to sub into one of the equations using something that we've known. In this first example, it's going to be pretty obvious what we're going to sub in, okay? But here's what we got to do, okay? Here's what you got to do. So you're going to have 2 equations, okay? Those 2 equations will have an x and a y. Not always, but in this case it doesn't. But in theory, okay, we'll have 2 equations, both with an x, both with a y, and both with a number, okay? Now, we have got to determine what is x equal to and what is y equal to. So you're going to have 2 answers every time. You're going to have an x answer and a y answer. Okay? Now, for this problem, why is this called substitution and why are we going to use substitution? Because remember, we're looking for x, we're looking for y. Look at this problem already. Y is equal to -5. It's already told us, okay? We've already got that. We already know what y is equal to. So what you're going to do is you're going to solve for x. Now, how are we going to solve for x? We're going to substitute, okay? So in theory, the way I look at it is I've got this first equation, got the second equation. For this first equation, guys, I already know what y is. Y is equal to -5, okay? So I'm going to sub in from the first equation to the second equation. So replace the y in the second equation with -5. Take what you know and plug it into what you don't know. I know y is equal to -5, so I'm going to replace the y in the second equation with -5. So that's going to be 5x plus 4. There's y, okay? Y, I'm going to replace it with -5. It's equal to -20. So look what I did. I plugged in -5 for y into the other equation. What's our goal? Our goal is to find x and y. I know what y is. So I plugged y in. Now I'm going to solve for x. So we're going to solve for x using that bottom equation, equation 2. Top equation, we're done with it. We used it to sub in. So that gives me 5x minus 20. 4 times -5 is equal to -20. All right, now look what happens, and this is where people get confused sometimes. We're going to add 20 to both sides. That cancels, 5x is equal to -20 plus 20. Well, that's just 0, okay? We say it cancels, it does, but you hold its place with a 0. And now to solve, divide both sides by 5, and 0 divided by anything is 0. So x is equal to 0. What was y equal to? Y was equal to -5. So most of the time, you'll see your answer written as an ordered pair. 0, -5. That's your x, that's your y. So that's typically how we see the answer written, okay? And that's how I will make them on, if it's multiple choice, that's how I'll write them, is 0, -5, or whatever. I'll write it like that, okay? So you can always go back and check these. You can plug them back in. You can do some things of that nature and double check to make sure that you got the correct answer. But this is exactly how we solve these problems, okay? So that was the first problem when basically you're already given one of the variables. Hey, in that case, we knew what y was. Plug that y into the other equation and solve for the other variable, in that case, x. All right, so when we get back, we'll look at example 2. All right, guys, so we're back to look at example 2. And example 2, again, is a little bit more tricky, a little bit more difficult than the first example. But before we get started, and I don't know if I've done this with this class, but my kids have been dying to introduce themselves. So at this time, I'll bring my son up here.
Gosh.
All right. This is my son. We tell him what your name is?
Cooper Bishop Wright.
Cooper Bishop Wright. How old are you, Cooper?
8.
8 years old. And what have you been doing since we've been out of school?
I've been doing a lot of schoolwork, and I've been outside riding on a golf cart.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. So Cooper's out of here. Next up, we've got my daughter. Come on. So this is my daughter. Will you tell them your name?
Peyton Elizabeth Wright.
Peyton Elizabeth Wright. How old are you, Peyton?
6.
6 years old. And what have you been doing since we've been out of school?
We got new wheels on the golf cart, and we've been riding around, and I did a lot of homework.
You did a lot of homework. You've been riding around on the golf cart. All right, kids.
And he's going to be the best teacher.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, kids. Y'all go upstairs, okay? You got to finish. All right. So, anyways, they were dying. I appreciate it, guys. They've been dying to talk to you about that or to introduce themselves. So, anyways, now we're going to look at this problem, and this one's a little bit trickier. Okay. Here's why it's trickier. It's because we have no x or y that's completely by itself. So what we want to do is we want to try to find an x and a y that is at least maybe not by itself, but close to being by itself, okay? So up top, I've got 4x plus 2y equals 10. That x has got a 4 next to it. That y has got a 2 next to it. Now, in some cases, we don't have to deal with that. We just have to go with it, okay? But in this case, look at the bottom. I've got x minus y equals 13. So I need to determine, since I'm doing substitution method, which variable I want to isolate. Now, in this case, I'm not going to say it's obvious, but the choice is the x in the bottom equation. The x and not the y. Why not the y? Because the y has a negative out in front of it, okay? And that kind of makes things strange, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to get the x in the second equation completely by itself. All right? In other words, we're simply going to move the y over. Okay? Now, when you do that, that gives me x is equal to, and you can just say 13 plus y. It doesn't matter how you write it. You could put y plus 13. Either way. So now I have isolated the x in the second equation. Now, that the x has been isolated, take the x from the second equation, plug it into the x in the top equation. So what do you mean, Coach Wright? Wherever I have an x in the top equation, the equation I didn't touch, replace it with 13 plus y. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that in right there. So look what happens. I'm just going to write this over here. So write down the 4. There's an x. Replace that x with 13 plus y. Okay? Replace that x with 13 plus y. Now it's plus 2y is equal to 10. I wrote down the rest of the equation. Okay? So I'll simply replace the x with 13 plus y. Now I'm going to do my math and solve for y. So watch what happens. All right? 4 times 13. That gives me 52. 4 times y is 4y. Plus 2y. Plus 2y equals 10. All right? We're going to do our math, solve for y. Okay? So that gives me 52 plus 4 plus 2 is 6y is equal to 10. All right? Subtract, subtract, subtract. Subtract 52 from both sides. Okay? So that's 6y is equal to negative 42. What do we do now? Again, divide both sides by 6. So we get y is equal to negative 7. So y is equal to negative 7. So I've found that now. Okay? So I've got y is equal to negative 7. Now I need to find out what x is. But look how simple. Don't go back to the original. Look at where I isolated for x. Now I'm simply going to plug in y right there. Okay? So when you do that, x is equal to 13. Replace this y with what? Negative 7. So x is equal to 13 minus 7, which is 6. So x is equal to 6. Y is equal to negative 7. That is our final answer. Okay? So again, that's a little bit more tricky. Okay? That's a little bit more tricky for sure. It's not the only way to do these problems, but it is a way that I want to focus on today for you guys to do this. So we had example 1, pretty basic. I already had the y isolated. Bam, plug it in, solve for x, got it. Next one, we had 2 equations. Nothing was isolated, but you have to understand, or you have to look for the variable that will be the easiest to isolate. The variable that is the easiest to isolate is the x in the second equation. Why? Because it's positive. Why? Because there's nothing attached to it. And the y, we could have isolated it, but it had a negative to the left, so it would cause some issues. Okay, we'd have to divide by negative, multiply by negative, whatever. And it may cause a little bit of problems that we wouldn't have to have if we just did it this way. Okay? So that's the lesson for today. Like I said, I appreciate you guys working hard. And keep up the hard work. I'm probably going to do this on a Google form this time. I think I've got it figured out to where it'll grade it immediately for me. Said 2 problems, probably be 2, maybe 3. I don't know. I change that every time. I always say it's going to be 2, and then I may add 1. But regardless, they'll all be multiple choice. So, like I said, I appreciate everybody working hard. I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody has a good weekend. And I will see you next time.